Namaste to all the viewers. Today, welcome to today's episode. Today, we shall be diving into two essays by Ananda Coomaraswamy, who was a philosopher and also an art historian, who saw clearly what modern civilization was doing to traditional cultures, especially in the context of India in the early 20th century during the British times. Uh, Writing primarily about India and Ceylon, Coomaraswamy was not just interested in nostalgia or romantic primitivism. He was more focused on the fundamental questions about what happens when we trade depth for novelty and for material progress, and also about what kind of cultural rootedness is lost when modernism comes into play. So, today, in particular, we will be discussing two essays. One is Tradition and Progress, and the other is Education. Both were written during the height of British colonial rule, that is all more than 100 years back. But their relevance, even in the modern times, hasn't diminished, or rather, you can say it has even more. It is more urgent to read such topics. Um, Today, we'll explore his radical claim that what we actually call progress might actually be a form of impoverishment, and that the education systems we proudly uh, uh, endorse and export around the world might be instruments of cultural destruction rather than just enlightenment. So I welcome Rishi. We both will be together reading this book today and commentating on it. Rishi, do you have any thoughts on?
Yeah. Namaskar to all of the audiences and also to Shell. And at first, I will just apologize for some of the inconveniences which might be happening to audiences because of the background noises which might be coming from my room. So please pardon me for any of the unintended consequences. So today we shall be discussing on those two very specific essays, which will be delving into something very crucial for us right now, shall as Nainer said to us that in today's world, the problems that we are facing right now, especially in India's case, regarding education values, such is the time that we need to get to hear such or we must hear such arguments which were made long time back, but yet somehow it's really important, and I guess the evergreen wisdom that it had, it will only I guess inspire us for much more progress, I guess, but I don't know. uh, Nainer, anything else that you would want to add?
Yes, we will comment on that as we further take on the essays themselves. Right now, I just want to show which book we're reading. So this is a compilation of his essays. It's called The Wisdom of Ananda Kumaraswamy. You can buy it on Amazon or any other website. And it has quite a lot of essays, including on various personalities also of his times, and on various themes and topics. Some about art, some about you can, as you will read about modernity and so on. So yeah, and now I shall show the actual document itself, which we will be reading.
So just before reading the document, we'll just say some of them. I guess a preface is needed, right, Nainer? Uh,
Yes.
so we will be seeing in these essays the great Kumaraswamy making several arguments which really will challenge our assumptions that we make about our modern life, and some great what should I say? He keeps on dismantling every single assumptions that we had made. Also, some of the bifurcations that we have made vis-a-vis us. and the modern or the first world, and real conflict between, and he also shows what actually is the real conflict, and what should be the right kind of uh, labeling that we should be using, and what should not we be using, which we currently are using right now, uh, and the fundamental different answers to question that he gives, and what makes our life meaningful, that too shall be known to us from today's essays.
Yes, we will be examining also various topics, or you can just say themes. And one theme is, for example, progress itself, and others are about tradition and how to uphold or change it, and what happens when we allow it to change. So, yes, I shall then begin reading the first essay. This, Rishi, can you see it on the screen?
Yeah, I can observe it.
Should I zoom in or is it enough like this?
I think for audience we can zoom it a bit, uh, for the audience sake, just a bit.
Okay, this much, right?
Yeah, this much is enough. I think they can read this.
Okay, yeah. So, tradition and progress. The problem of the spiritual East versus the material West is very easily mistaken. I have repeatedly emphasized that it is only accidentally a geographical or racial problem. The real clash is of traditional, anti traditional concepts and cultures, and that is unquestionably a clash of spiritual or ideological with material or sensate points of view. Shall we or shall we not delimit sacred and profane departments of life? I, at any rate, will not. I think if you consider palace, peaks, and llamas, you will see what I mean. That it is undeniable that the modern world, which happens to be still a Western world, however fast the East is being westernized, is one of impoverished reality, one empty of meaning or values. Our contemporary trust in progress is a veritable fideism, as naive as is to be found in any past historical context. East and West imports a cultural rather than a geographical antithesis, an opposition of the traditional or ordinary way of life that survives in the East to the modern and irregular way of life that now prevails in the West. It is because of such an opposition as this could not have been felt before the Renaissance that we say that the problem is one that presents itself only accidentally in terms of geography. It is one of times, much more than of places. The Oriental culture and way of life are traditional, the modern anti traditional. The one values stability, the other change or progress. One demands from art an adequate expression of truth, the other self expression. For one, art is a necessity without which nothing can be well or truly made or adapted to good use, while for the other, art is a luxury to be enjoyed apart from activity and without bearing on conduct. The Oriental dance, for example, is an intellectual discipline and physical display, or, like other modern arts, the self expression of the artist's private emotional storms. The Oriental artist, even at a core, is really maintained by the unanimous patronage of a unanimous society. The modern artist depends on the precarious support of a clique that is only a tiny fraction of the whole community. His art dealt with themes which are and have been familiar to everyone, literate or illiterate, and whether rich or poor, for millennia. There had been no necessity to include in cultural curricula courses on the appreciation of art. When every professional had disciplines or apprentices, there was little need for school of art in our sense, but only for masters and pupils. In the East, the necessity for museums was not felt until the traditional arts had been almost destroyed by the contagion from modern civilization. Just as when folk songs could be heard everywhere, no one collected them. We can discuss. Do you have any thoughts on what we have read so far, Rishi?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first, the point number, I think these are some of the best quotations from his works, right? From his multiple essays that he has wrote in regarding these subjects,
Yes.
especially. So the first para, if I could describe it as such, uh, he talks about the whole spiritual East and the material West and how this is misconstrued and how it's just not simply a geographical or a racial problem. Uh, he rightly points out that it's actually something regarding traditional and an anti traditional concept regarding cultures, where there is a constant fight between what is spiritual or ideological with what is material or sensual views of life. And what we see that there is a point that he makes where, uh, given that he takes the side of the traditional, he says that there is no such so-called bifurcation between what is spiritual and what is profane. The spiritual and profane exists. Uh, what should I say? The spiritual and profane exist holistically in a human life, and there are no compartments that okay, this is spiritual and this is profane or common or secular, and these are totally compartmentalized and shall not be interfering in one another. So it seems like he's opposing that point of view, and that's what he points out as the crucial difference between what is called a life in East, quote unquote, which is spiritual according to some of the monikers that are given by the modern West, whereas what is called as a modern society or the first world is actually completely devoid of values or meaning. It's just a rat race for different trends of consumption of various objects. Uh, am I pointing out correct, Nina?
Yes, very much so. And that's why he also calls it an impoverished reality, where it is essentially extremely concerned with what is a fact, what is real, but it is also less concerned with values, and that is why it is empty of values.
Completely. I guess that's why there is this whole trend towards consumption so much so uh, in the first world, where the only value, quote unquote, that there is what kind of objects do you uh, conjure up, which can easily be consumed by any sense organs that we have. That's the only value I guess they have, and that's literally, I guess, from a traditional point of view, would be empty of meaning of or of real values. So in the
There is
next
also
portion,
the perspective
yeah,
that, yeah, can I continue?
yeah, please.
Yeah, so there is also the perspective here in the third paragraph, which is quite important. Um, so how he mentions how one demands, that is the oriental or the traditional life demands from art and adequate expression of truth. The other, that is the modern demands a self-expression. So you can see the essential difference here. One is more concerned about the value. The other considers value less fundamental, and it considers the individual more fundamental in the larger scheme of things. That is why self-expression comes over the actual an expression of truth. The when this happens, an individual truth, it becomes more important than the collective truth. That it is implicit here in that in a traditional or oriental cultural way of life, that collective truth exists, and that when an individual truth is expressed, it must be an adequate expression of the collective truth, the truth accepted by a lot of authority. The other accepts every individual truth in its own way, without you can say backing it up with a cultural value, in a sense. And from that you can understand the rest of the paragraph itself. Yeah, Rishi, you can continue.
Yeah, indeed. And I'm noticing a conundrum that he puts out. What you said right now about that individual truth and collective truth. It seems to me somehow unusually that the so-called modern or the first world, which talks about objectivity, uh, they are more geared towards subjectivity, because an individual truth is very much a subjective point of view. It's whereas the collective truth is very
Absolutely.
much something which takes into account everyone else's experiences, and it's more objective in that regards. Very unusual to me that such a crucial difference lies, and yet this is shown as the first world being much more advanced than the uh, traditional world, because somehow the first world, uh, like it validates impulses and emotionalism from a individual. I don't know, it's very very confusing to me, but he greatly points it out, and as you as well did so right now.
Yes. And also, one thing noticeable is about when it becomes about collective truth versus individual truth. He also writes it in the last paragraph. You can see here about the concept of appreciation of art. When it is individual,
Yeah,
or when it is individual or about self-expression, then appreciation of art becomes uh, extremely difficult. You can say, because there is no standard you can fall back to. When it is collective, you are competing against competing, or you can say there is a standard or an expectation on you to actually conform to a truth, right? So appreciation comes in with certain norms and so on. Those norms are lost.
indeed. And I don't know if this example would be good or not. I guess what you said right now, which is such a crucial point, that um, that self-expression sense of mm, grandeur that is there in the modern art, which actually only can cater to a set of people alone, and it's very much a subjective thing. This is also seen in a very stark difference, right? When we talk about sports. So, sports is something which actually conforms to many of the collective truths, in a sense. And that thing is very much accepted by the competitors in sports. And those who join in that competition, they never revolt or have this sort of thing about, okay, I will be expressing my subjective views through my demonstration of skills. That isn't going to be there. The collective truth is
Yes,
paramount, and keeping that as the base, they will represent their own skill, I guess, representing that collective truth. What would you say? Is my example correct or not?
yes, it's absolutely correct, especially in the fact that the rules are set and there is an authority already put in front of the players. In that manner, this kind of cultural expectation I was talking about. That is the same as a rule in a sport game, and that is respected by the sport players. When art moves towards individualism and self-expression, it kind of gives up those roles and expectations, and you can see there is less appreciation for art as well. It goes both ways in the end.
So true, so true. I mean, so many art galleries may be built in a city, but yet not many go there and try to appreciate the arts at all because they know the kind of standards that the arts have right now, like
Yes.
a banana on a wall and so on and so forth. I guess let we should move ahead, right?
Now we can continue reading. I'll continue reading then.
Absolutely.
Who have set about to conquer nature, who have thoughts of discontent as divine, who have honored the discoverers of new wants, who have sacrificed spontaneity to the concept of inevitable progress. These positions of the social gospel are none of those that the East had ever thought as making for happiness. Sinhalese people are not, in my opinion, happier or better than they were in the 18th century. Talk of progress and the reality are not the same. Civilization is supposed to advance by the creation of new desires, to gratify which the individual must endeavor to improve his position. But in reality, it is not quantity, but quality of wants that may be taken as evidence of progress in the art of living. No one acquainted with modern Sinhalese taste will pretend that it gives evidence of any improvement in the quality of wants. Indeed, it is sufficiently obvious that quantity, variety, and novelty are not really compatible with quality. The world's museums are filled with the traditional arts of innumerable peoples whose culture has been destroyed by the sinister power of industrial civilization. Peoples who have been forced to abandon their own highly developed and significant designs in order to preserve their lives by working as hired laborers at the production of raw materials. Cain, who killed his brother Abel, the herdsman, and built himself a city, prefigures modern civilization, one that has been described from within as a murderous machine with no conscience and no ideals. By G. La Piana, Neither Human Nor Normal Nor Christian by Eric Gill, and in fact an anomaly, not to say a monstrosity, Rene Guénon. It has been said the values of life are slowly ebbing. The rediscover is the show of civilization without any of its realities by A. N. Whitehead. Criticisms such as these could be cited without end. Modern civilization, by its divorce from any principle, can be likened to a headless corpse of which the last motions are convulsive and insignificant. It is not, however, of suicide, but of murder that we suppose to speak. I am staying in a house in Main Street, a new house with Mangalore tiles. Well, gentlemen, I am often tempted to use an umbrella in the house. So great is the heat that penetrates these tiles. But I have been into some of our old Tamil houses dating from about 100 years ago. Immediately on leaving the high road and entering the door, feeling of coolness is experienced. Besides that, the houses were well and handsomely built with solid timbers, simply carved, and they are fit to stand 100 years again. But the new house is already showing signs of wear and tear. Difference in coolness is, of course, easily explained. With only one layer of tiles, the sun's heat is transmitted to the air of the room beneath. With four or five of the old tiles, or with a palmyra thatch, there are layers of air, a non-conductor, which prevent the transmission of heat to the room beneath. Gentlemen, here is a case in which we have not done well in following the dictates of a mere fashion and in exchanging old for new. The vitality quantity of tradition persists only so long as it is fed by the intensity of imagination. The world may be likened to a vast, as yet unordered garden, having diverse soils and aspects, some watered, some arid, some plain, some mountain, different parts of which should properly be tended by different gardeners, having experience of different diverse qualities of soil and aspect. But certain ones have seized upon the plots of others and attempted to replace the plants natural to those plots with others more acceptable or profitable to themselves. We have not to consider only the displaced gardeners who naturally do not admire and are not grateful for the changes introduced to their plots, but to ask whether these proceedings are beneficial to the owner of the garden for whom the gardeners work. Who is this owner, folk of the world of the future, which is ever becoming the present? Shall they be glad or sorry if uniformity has replaced diversity? If but one type of vegetation is to be found within their garden, flourishing perhaps in one part but sickly in another, what of the flowers that might have flourished in that other part had they not have been swept away? That is the end of this essay. So, Rishi, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, uh, the first para that you read, that is really, really important, I think. If you could go there,
This one,
we'll
right? To
see.
have set about to conquer nature.
Yeah, I think so. That you, it's a very good. Yeah.
I scrolled
So
up. You
in
can
that,
read from this.
yeah, okay. Somehow it's not coming over here. Okay, no problem. Yeah, so this to conquer nature, to have thought of discontent. So, I'm reminded of one of the scientists that there is of modern world. He also talks too many times about politics. Leaving that aside, he says that nature is ruthless and it's so vile and vicious. We would have been extinct by now if not this endeavor that we had of conquering nature, that we advanced ourselves and made ourselves great. Do you think this sort of attitude actually made us great or let us live? Because I think adaptability, which according to Darwin at least, is the main cause for our survival. Uh, as far as a species, we are concerned. Don't you think adaptability versus this notion of conquer or imperialism over nature, this also represents that collective truth and individual truth as well? The conundrum that there is between the modern world and the traditional world.
Yes, and in a way, you can look at this conquering as essentially destruction, right? It is it is overcoming or it is looking at nature or the old rules as an obstacle in front of which is placed in front of you. In contrast to that, the adaptability which you mentioned, which is also talking of by Darwin, that doesn't consider things as obstacles essentially. That is more about learning to live with things and learning to live with new realities, but also not losing the old characteristics that we have.
Indeed, and somehow I'm getting that vibe from this small para as well, and very much that suddenly it came to my mind of that talk where the scientist was complaining about how the love for nature is too overhyped and so on and so forth. Okay, so the next point, Now, this is something uh, very hidden. I think a very hidden criticism, in fact. So he takes the example of Sinhalese from Sri Lanka, and he talks about how progress and reality are not the same. Uh, right now, political ideologies or even companies or institutions, they are always harping on about progressivism, or how we must progress and how we cannot be a Luddite, basically. But the fact is, they also deny reality in the name of progress, as is seen from here. That, to quote Kumaraswamy, civilization is supposed to advance by the creation of new desires, to gratify which the individual must endeavor to improve his position. But in reality, it is not quantity but quality of wants. So, this quality of wants, this is never addressed at all. It's always about the quantity, and it's always about how easily that quantity can uh, be made accessible for consumption, much more. So, with even with information decentralization, we see that there is this trend on how to make those information more accessible, or like how easily can much more quantities be accessed by many people. But what kind of information or what quality of information, that is never addressed, and that is also shunned in some ways. Like, you cannot be talking about, okay, so these set of informations are wrong, and I guess we should not be opening them up, or making them easily consumable for people out there. But this check on quality and is never taken into account, I guess. What would you say, Nina?
Yes, and there are many things that go out in that. There is also the idea of rights, right? That something must not be denied at, or there must never be an prohibition to entry to anything, to anyone, or anything. And from
True.
that, you kind of lose quality already there. That is why
Yep.
you can see that anyone can become an artist now, or while earlier, at least as far as I know, there was at least you have to be part of a tradition from a master student line, right?
Exactly. Exactly. You would need you would need certification or some sort of lineage, at least, to establish yourself at first, that okay, I am worthy of doing this because I have these set of qualifications. Now it's just, how can you stop someone from speaking out? It's his right, it's a natural right. Sometimes I feel like this whole harping on about rights, it's only about justifying emotions, isn't it?
Yeah, in a way, yes. And it's also it is about a lesser self introspection, and also about a denial of authority. In the earlier times, especially, I think one of the biggest differences between modern and traditional is that the modern accepts almost no authority, while the traditional accepts authority in various forms. And there is a sort of natural acceptance that someone is authority above you, certain things, and you do not step over that line. What do you think about that?
Yeah, this sense of humility which comes from this sense of, okay, there is an authority, and I am not the quote unquote survey sarva of everything. So I must at least
Yes.
be humble enough to accept that authority and try to uh, accept the collective truth as well due to that authority. Right, what you said, that the individual expression is not the paramountcy over there. It's the collective truth. And in that, the individual expression, that's the paramountcy. The uh, the collective truth stays above, and then the individual expression off of it. But that's just lopsided in the other situation. It's always and always about self-expression, nothing else. And any sort of obstruction to that or any sort of criticism of it is seen as a violation of rights.
Absolutely. We can discuss on the next few paragraphs as well.
Yeah, of course. So, okay, this is very sad. So, the next small para actually tells us about something very hideous that we see across our society, much less in our society, I think, right, Nainer? Because I see this very much in Western society. In West, this whole culture of museum is,
Yes.
oh, it's just numerous in large numbers. There, it's a qualitative thing, like sorry, not qualitative, quantitative. Like so many museums. I mean, so many dead objects there. It's somehow diabolical to me. It's like representing corpses of various
What
set of
I
things
think
that you
about,
have destroyed.
yeah, yes, yes. And what I think about the concept of museum itself is about presenting in a way what you have conquered and overcome, right? And
True.
what
It's
you
like
did not live with in the end.
true. It's like the dead animal carcasses being showcased by a very rich hunter. It's just like that. That's a museum, I guess. Stuffing up animals, killing them. It's like that. So the earlier civilizations are
Yes,
savage, therefore they need to be destroyed, and then they are portrayed. Look, we have destroyed them. These are the carcasses. And over here, he also talks about how we left our own designs or highly developed skills in order to preserve our lives by becoming cogs in the whole modern society, which is just producing objects out of raw materials, and we are the laborers, aka cogs.
yes. And
I guess
in the next paragraph, he discusses a metaphor from I think the biblical tradition about Cain and Abel. Though I do not have much context as to what it is, but uh, there is a sort of he kinds of equates urbanism with a modernity. Though it is kind of vague, but I get the point.
yeah, we get the point. To the audience, we will just say that we both are not scholars of biblical tradition, so we won't be able to comment on it much more than that. And also over here as well, Kumar Swami also is quoting the Western authors, so he's also not like really hinging upon it. His main point is about the
Yes,
modern civilization versus traditional civilization. That's the point that we need to take, as Nainer explained to us right now. Yeah. So
yes. And do you have
the
any thoughts on the
next
final paragraph?
yeah, so on the final paragraph, a very good what should I say? It's not allegory, right? What do you say? Upama. I don't get it. Example or example, I guess. So the
Metaphor.
example that he takes is about an metaphor. Yeah, right. Thanks. Uh, in this metaphor, he uses the word unordered garden, which has varieties within it, mm, with disproportionate amounts of soil, fauna, flora, topography, so on and so forth. And in that, there is a need for different set of gardeners to take care of them. and to analyze and to maintain those. But instead, what happens is certain set of quote unquote have seized upon, to quote Coomaraswamy, upon the plots of others and attempted to replace the plants natural to those plots with others more acceptable or profitable to themselves. So there is this whole trend of okay, we need to uniformize, we need to destroy the topography. I guess we need to make it plain. So get rid of the hills. So these are the plants that are not good for us uh, because of various reasons. I guess. So they will get rid of them, and just only one or two set of plants shall be there alone, and those who can care for those set of plants, they alone shall be employed over here. So all other kind of gardener they are rid of, and this continues. And with that, what happens is Kumaraswamy questions that, isn't it same that's happening right now? I guess by using this metaphor, that there is this constant need for uniformity which replaces diversity. And to quote last, if but one type of vegetation is to be found within their garden, flourishing perhaps in one part, but sickly in another, what of the flowers that might have flourished in that other part had they not been set away? So this is such an important line over here. I think because this happens, right? So one set of plants, if you just keep on producing, there are corners where they will not be reared so much so, and those corners, I guess, are representations of early topography and so on. There it cannot grow itself much
Yes.
better, and there those plants suffer. Instead, if we had kept the earlier plants which we got rid of, wouldn't that have been better? Wouldn't that have been good for the garden itself? I guess that's the dilemma which we see again in modern world vis-a-vis traditional world. What do you say of my views and overall this paragraph here?
I agree with your views completely. And over that, I would like to add the point that just a second, it's loading.
Hmm.
So this thing about the owner finding a new plant and then planting it for a profit or for you can say his own benefit. You see, in the longer or broader scheme of things, it's a very, very temporary arrangement. You can say that within a few years that plant goes unprofitable, and then he might have to bring back the old plants, and then the old plants go unprofitable, and then he has to bring another set of plants. It's very, you can say, it's superficial in a sense. So if he maintained the soil as a unique the soil and the plants and the flowers as a unique garden for specifically those, and it was held so throughout ages and ages, wouldn't that be more meaningful than this temporary arrangement where you just superficially keep changing the plants according to temporary needs?
So true. Again, your point, right? That collective truth versus individual truth. What the gardener is doing right now is individual expression, whereas the earlier set of gardeners, what they were doing was the maintaining the collective truth and the tradition itself.
Yes, exactly. And on this, maybe Rishi might know more, but there was this idea of Shreya and Preya in Kathopanishad. And Shreya is about
Absolutely.
longer term good, and Preya is more about short term good. And that is the same thing as
Yeah.
collective truth versus individual truth, right?
Brilliant point. Brilliant point. This should be noted. Wow. Amazing. Absolutely. That is the case. Shreyas and Preyas, absolutely. Shreyas is hita, like it's beneficial, it's long term. It's evergreen, as you said, and whereas praise is temporary, impulsive, emotional, and very shrewd, I guess, in a way.
Yes, and it's also described as heartless, if I recall. So, yeah,
Oh, nice.
yeah, we can continue with the next essay then. So, this was the first essay on tradition and progress. The second
Yep.
essay we will be discussing today is on education. On education, what we will be discussing is his indictments on colonial education first. And it's also an indictment on overall Western education. But the first critique starts with colonial education because that's where Western education came first into our experience. So he talk about how you can say there is a sort of cultural rootedness which is being lost through this education, and how there are a lot of English educated Indians who become strangers in their own land, unable to read their own mother tongue, unable to appreciate their own culture, art, and so on. So, yes, I should start reading this essay then. Rishi, any opening
Yeah,
thoughts on
definitely.
it?
Yeah, in fact, we'll see for the audience, I must clarify. So, we will see that throughout both the essays that we will be reading, in the first set of essay that we read on tradition and progress, what Nina talked about, the collective truth and the individual truth, because of this education, how we are unable to touch upon or even to realize the collective truth, that will be explained far more better in this set of essay that we'll be reading. And Kumaraswamy actually will be talking about what is genuine education and cultural life, and what vision does it have. That it's grounded in the idea that learning should deepen your connection to your own tradition rather than sever it. The art should serve truth rather than self expression, that every aspect of life can be sacred rather than divided into spiritual and material compartments. So, we'll be touching on these, we will be analyzing these points. So, Dinner, uh, I guess we shall move on.
Yes, yeah. So, education. One of the most remarkable features of British rule in India has been the fact that the greatest injuries done to the people of India have been taken the outward form of blessings. Of this, education is a striking example. For no more crushing blows have ever been struck at the roots of Indian evolution than those which have been struck often with the other and the best intentions in the name of education. It is sometimes said by friends of India that the national movement is a natural result of English education, and one of which England should be in truth be proud, showing that under civilization in the Pax Britannica, Indians are becoming at last capable self-government. The facts are otherwise. Indians are still capable of self government. It is in spite of all the anti national tendencies, a system of education that has ignored or despised almost every ideal informing the national culture. A single generation of English education suffices to break the threads of tradition and to create a nondescript and superficial being deprived of all roots, a sort of intellectual pariah who does not belong to the East or the West, the past or the future. It will be for us to develop the Indian intelligence through the medium of Indian culture and the building thereupon to make it possible for India to resume her place amongst the nations, not merely as a competitor in material production, but as a teacher of all that belongs to a true civilization, indeed of the future, of the past. Here and ordinary English education can help but little and can hinder much. It is a marvel to me how a self respecting people can endure for a day not the system of government but the system of education from which we suffer. None can be true educators of the Indian people who cannot inherit their traditions or cannot easily work in a spirit of perfect reverence for those traditions. Others can be not education educators, but merely teachers of particular subjects. As such, there is still room in India for English teachers, but they should be not in power but subordinate. They should be engaged by, paid by, and responsible to Indian managers, as in Japan, English teachers are responsible to Japanese authorities. By their fruits ye shall know them. The most crushing indictment of this education is the fact that it destroys, in the great majority of those upon whom it is inflicted, all capacity for the appreciation of Indian culture. Speak to the ordinary graduate of an Indian university or a student from Ceylon of the ideas of the Mahabharata, he will hasten to display his knowledge of Shakespeare. Talk to him of religious philosophy, you find that he is an atheist of the crude type common in Europe a generation ago, and that not only has he no religion, but he is as lacking in philosophy as the average Englishman. Talk to him of Indian music, he will produce a gramophone or a harmonium and inflict on you one or both. Talk to him of Indian dress or jewelry, and he will tell you that they are uncivilized and barbaric. Talk to him of Indian art. It is news to him that such a thing exists. Ask him to translate for you a letter written in his own mother tongue. He does not know it. He is indeed a stranger in his own land. Yes, English educators of India, you do well to scorn the Babu graduate. He is your own special production, made in your own image. He might be one of your very selves. Do you not recognize the likeness? Probably you do not, for you are still hidebound in that impervious skin of self satisfaction that enabled your most pompous and self important Philistine, Lord Macaulay, to believe that a single shelf of good European library was worth all the literature of India, Arabia, and Persia. Beware lest in 100 years that judgment be reversed, in the sense that Oriental culture will occupy a place even in European estimation, ranking at least equally with classic. Meanwhile, you have done well nigh all that could be done to eradicate it in the land of its birth. So, we can discuss on these things. So, do you have any thoughts to share on the starting paragraphs of this essay?
Powerful paragraphs these are. So one of the greatest realization that he gives us is that British India did not really. So the normal trope is about, right. So the normal trope is, from the post-colonial line of argument that okay, British looted us, they took our wealth, yada yada yada. That's not the greatest injury. He says that the greatest injury was what the post-colonials also think as great blessing. It's actually the education that has been the greatest injury to us. It's, to quote Coomaraswamy, crushing blows. It really struck at the very base of Indian civilization itself. And it was done in the name of best intentions, in the name of education. And he also talks about the usual argument, right? So English education, as a result of that, people started to learn about what's called civilization, uh, and under this Pax Britannica, the so-called Indian people, or the educated ones, had this realization of self-government or agency. That's so fake. That is so fake. Like, if education was the result for so-called realization of self-government, uh, then why were the common masses the first one to revolt and not the educated ones? Because I don't know if 1857 had any English educated guys supporting it. as far as I know, from Kolkata at that time, Hindu Patriot and so on, they were completely supporting the British administration and vouching for it. So this is such a false argument, and it shows the folly of
And
it. Okay,
also,
that how?
and
Yeah,
another
please.
argument in your favor is about the Swadeshi movement, where actually the English educated elites were arguing against the burning of English-made clothes and so on. It was the common masses that actually went about, you can say, burning the clothes and so on, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the whole Swadeshi movement was so much mocked by these English educated and so-called people who realized self-governance or agency. These were the ones who were trotting upon common masses right at that time, when common masses were trying to assert actual self-agency by actually revolting against any sort of imposition. The greatest imposition being the suppression of their own industrial skills and entrepreneurship. The Swadeshi movement launched the whole idea that, okay, we need to be entrepreneur, we need to produce our own goods and products, and we need to produce them and wear them and also compete with others in promoting them. That was criticized by the enlightened people with great wisdom due to Pax Britannica and its best intended education. So, absolutely, you are proven correct by this.
Yes. And do you have any thoughts about the paragraph where he talks about the average Indian graduate and how
Yeah,
he
oh
is
my God.
basically illiterate, even though he has
Yeah.
taken the highest education and he is yet illiterate.
In the second para, he says, right, the intellectual pariah who does not belong to the east nor to the west, neither to the past nor to the future.
Exactly.
Completely that.
And actually he even mentioned in this paragraph, you can see, talk to him of religious philosophy. You find that he's an atheist of the crude type, common in Europe a generation ago. So he's even behind the West. He's uh, too behind, or what do you call it? Ahead of the East. He's out of place in the East. He has no home. It's a cultural homelessness.
Oof, like how how caricatured you can be, right? So you are basically inimical to your home civilization, so you are out of that, of course, and you are basically a cheap copy of the West, whom you are trying to ape. So even in West, you will never be appreciated because, okay, I mean, you are only doing what we are already doing, and we are far ahead of you, and you are still backdated. So you are not even appreciated even there. So he explains over here, right, that the guy, when he's discussed when some discussion happens about Mahabharata, he talks about Shakespeare. I mean, come on. Even at that time when he's getting educated, he's talking about Shakespeare, which is about 200 years ago that happened. Like, why would the West be interested, or why would the
Even the
Eastern guy
Europeans would be over Shakespeare.
yeah, yeah, they will be over Shakespeare. I mean, they have had enough of him. But this guy is, and the most rustic part, right? That what you talked about right now, that he's an atheist of the crudest of types. Like in India, we see that in modern generation, especially even now, I see that in some of the groups, they like the arguments that they will give. It will sound like, okay, these are from our from 2002, like to give reference to audience about modern context. So uh, in normal discussion forums, we will see so-called teenagers right now giving arguments back from the era of four horsemen, atheist types, Christopher Hitchens, yada yada, so on and so forth, who are now old cooks now, who are not even respected in their own countries anymore. they are seen as outdated people who have, okay, they were there, they had served their purpose, that's it, now move ahead. Still they are being repeated over here. So exactly what you said right now.
And in this, we can also compare with the analogy that he gave in the last essay about the owner having to plant new flowers each time that he finds a new flower profitable, right? There is no sense of permanency. He in this kind of culture, you're always playing catch up with the West.
Absolutely. Brilliant point. I guess that's what happens when you take decisions because of impulse and emotion. And I guess that's the gift that came from Pax Britannica education with best intentions. All that it made of Indian people was emotional set of individuals who are now elites. Amazing.
Yes.
By the way, one of the recommendations that he gives, right? Uh, I think it was in page 15, the last para. So he talks about the true educators. Who should it be? So he talks about who are steeped in traditions and are aware of what is happening in the world. They should be the ones educating us. So the quality part, right? The tradition which produces the quality part, as well as those who
Yes.
know about modern civilization, so on and so forth. There he gives a very crucial point, right? So educators, uh, others can be not educators but merely teachers of particular subjects. And he talks about they should not be in power but subordinate to, and be managed by Indians themselves, just like it happened in Japan. So right now we see, right, that some professors and all from Western universities will come in India and start teaching over here. And when Indians start to say to him that, okay, you're not in charge, brother, you can either heed to us or just leave, they get really pissed off. But that's what an intelligent guy, or one of the greatest of intellects, Ananda Coomaraswamy, talked about, right? This whole prescription on how to control these set of people. What do you say of it?
Yes. And also interesting is the distinction he makes between an educator and a teacher. Uh, I think he's kind of making teachers very people who are very, you can say, specific. They only know about a specific subject matter, like he mentions English, whereas educators are properly those who know about a broad set of subjects and so on.
True, and I think there is a difference of pedagogy, right? So a teacher will be like mechanical and will be staying true to his subject and will be
Yes, like
mm,
you teach the basics of English and move on. You have no other use to the
yeah,
student.
yeah, 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 and all that he is good in is that subject alone, and not in the methodology, or not seeped in any other context at all. And that's a crucial difference, because that's what educators have. And when we make these set of teachers as educators, what they will then bring in is their own set of prejudices because of the subjects that they teach. And it was actually shown in Swami and his friends also, right? In the first episode, the first story of it, the guy is there for teaching his subject, but since he was the educator over there, to teach something else as well, which was totally uncalled for. So I guess that's how they should be controlled, as far as Ananda Kumar Swami is concerned. That uh,
Yes,
they're at the top. Indians should be at uh, managing them.
agreed. So I can continue reading it because we have quite a lot to finish.
Yeah, of course.
Yes. So firstly, the almost universal philosophical attitude on trusting strongly. that of the ordinary Englishman who hates philosophy. For every science school in India today, let us see to it that there are 10 tomorrow, but there are wrong as well as right ways of teaching science. Superstition of facts, taught in the name of science, were a poor exchange for a metaphysic, for a conviction of the subjectivity of all phenomena. In India, even the peasant will grant you that all this is Maya, but he may not understand the full significance of what he says. Consider the deepening of European culture needed before the peasant there could say, however blindly, that the world is but appearance, by no means thing in itself. Secondly, the sacredness of all things, the antithesis of the European division of life into sacred and profane. The tendency in European religious development has been to exclude from the domain of religion every aspect of worldly activity. Science, art, sex, agriculture, commerce are regarded in the West as secular aspects of life, quite apart from religion. It is not surprising that under such conditions, those concerned with life in its reality have come to feel the so called religion that ignores the activities of life as a thing apart and of little interest or worth. In India, this was never so. Religion idealizes and spiritualizes life itself rather than excludes it. This intimate entwining of the transcendental and material, this annihilation with the possibility of profanity or vulgarity of thought, explain the strength and permanence of Indian faith. It demonstrates not merely the stupidity, but the wrongness of attempting to replace religious culture by one entirely material. Thirdly, the true spirit of religious toleration, illustrated continually in Indian history, and based upon a consciousness of the fact that all religious dogmas are formulas imposed upon the infinite by the limitations of the finite human intellect. Fourthly, etiquette. Civilization conceived of as a product of civil men. There is Sinhalese proverb that runs, take the plowman from the plow and wash off his dirt, and he is fit to rule a kingdom. This was spoken, says Knox, of the people of Pandey Uda, the highlands of Ceylon, because of the civility, understanding, and gravity of the poorest among them. Their ordinary ploughmen and husbandmen who speak elegantly and are full of compliment. There is no difference between the ability of speech of a countryman and a courtier. There could be said of few people any greater things than these, but they cannot be said of those who have passed through the instruction machines or the education systems of today. They belong to a society where life itself bought culture, not books or education alone. Fifthly, special ideas in relation to education, such as the relation between a teacher and pupil, implied in the words of Guru and Chela, master and disciple, memorizing great literature, the epics as embodying ideals of character, learning a privilege demanding qualifications, not to be forced on the unwilling or used as a mere road to material prosperity. Extreme importance of the teacher's personality. As the man who digs with a spade obtains water, even so, an obedient pupil obtains the knowledge which lies in his teacher. This view is antithetic to the modern practice of making everything easy for the pupil. Sixthly, the basis of ethics are not any commandments, but the principle altruism founded on the philosophical truth. Thy neighbor is thyself. Recognition of the unity of all life. Seventhly, control not merely of action but of thoughts, concentration, one pointedness, capacity for stillness. These are some of the points of view which are intrinsic in Indian culture and must be recognized in any sound educational ideal for India, but are in the present system ignored or opposed. The aim should be to develop a people's intelligence through the medium of their own natural national culture. So the national culture is the only Aussichtspunkt, point of view from which, in relation to a wider landscape, a man can rightly sich am Denken orient himself in thinking. To this culture has to be added, for those brought into contact with the modern era, some part of that wider synthesis should enable such a one to understand what may be the nature of the prospect seen from other of the great headlands, the other national cultures, where from humanity has gazed into the dim sea, the infinite unknown. To effect this wider synthesis are needed signals and interpretations rather than that laborious backward march through the emptiness of a spiritual desert where one may perish by the way, or if not so, then weary and footsore arrive at last on one of those other headlands, only to learn, it may be, that there is to be found a less extensive prospect and a more barren soil. Our university must above all be a school of Oriental learning, sufficient not only for ourselves, but to attract scholars from all parts of the world to learn the wisdom of the East in the East. The missionary must not be allowed to educate until he really understands the Indian people and desires to help them to solve their problems in their own way. He must not be allowed to teach until he himself has learned. Alas for wasted opportunity to share in the true education of the Indian woman, but indeed a privilege. Behind her are the traditions of the great women of Indian history and myth, women strong in love and war, sainthood in submission and in learning. She is still a guarded flame, this daughter of 100 earls. She has not to struggle for a living in a competitive society, but is free to be herself. Upon her might be lavished the resources of all culture to make yet more perfect that which is already most exquisitely so. You that have entered on the task confidently with the ulterior motive of conversion have proved yourself unfit. Lay no blame on India for her slowness to accept the education you have offered to her woman. Praise her alone for the wise instincts that lead her to mistrust you. When you learn that none can truly educate those against whose ideals they are blindly prejudiced, when you realize that you can but offer new modes of expression to faculties already exercised in other ways, when you come with reverence as well as to learn as to teach, when you establish schools within the Indian social ideal and not antagonistic to it, then perhaps we may ask you to help us build upon that great foundation. Not I trust before, lest there should be too much for the daughters of our daughters to unlearn. Right. And yes, we can discuss from first point where he started.
Yeah, amazing,
So,
amazing
what are your
reading.
thoughts on this
Nina.
quite amazing essay? Yes.
Yeah, yeah. From prescriptions to critiques, it's just brilliant, one after another. So, in the first one, he talks about how philosophy as a subject itself is hated by common people in Western world or in the modern world. It's seen even in today's case as well, uh, very apparent from their views and their whole set of lifestyle that common people have vis-a-vis the elites. So here he talks about how there are multiple sets of science school in India by then, and now it's much more. But there
Yes.
he points out how uh, pedagogy is so wrong. So he talks about superstition of facts taught in the name of science are a poor exchange for metaphysics, or I can say I think I should say philosophy. In fact, that was his meaning. I think intended meaning, at least, that multiple sets of facts about science that does not count for philosophy or uh, what could be called as for overall outlook for the world itself. Knowing facts doesn't help you in that. Actually, metaphysics does, and that cannot be substituted with science schools at all. And then he gives an example that a poor peasant in India will talk about Jagat Maya hai, all this is Maya. That he might not be a scholar, a Sanskrit scholar at all, but the deepening of that knowledge, he gets it. He may not be able to explain it in complete detail like a Sanskrit scholar or a professor, but he will still know what the intended meaning is. And that sort of deepening never happened in either European or right now in the total West, at Western culture, and I guess also in urban India as well. uh, I guess I'm correct. That's what this para means, at least the first point. Dinner.
Yes, yes, very much so. Yes, yes. And what do you think about the following paragraph? Because this is also continuing on the same broad point.
Yeah. So this is talking about, right, that the foolish at least I would like to think that Ananda Coomaraswamy actually thought of it as a foolish way to describe life itself. That there are two sets of bifurcation, uh, where there is the domain of religion and there is the domain of worldly activity. Surprisingly enough, that's secularism, right, Nainer, which is touted by
Yes, yes, it is
many of the
secularism.
intellectuals right now in India.
And you see it in their
Amazing.
way of life as well. For their own religious people, they have a in Christianity, they have a separate school, like a Sunday school, where they separately study religion. And for the other things, they go to a normal school, apparently.
Such a weird kind of pedagogy they have. Like, religion is so distant that you need one single day and a kind of school to learn that. You cannot be even admitting it in your daily life at all. Like, it's so useless in your daily life.
Exactly. And there is
And
also a
I
sort of divorcing from of the moral with, you can say, the scientific in a sense. But there are many parallels you can find about moral things in science as well, which their culture doesn't exactly promote.
yeah, absolutely true. What you pointed out, like, because of this intermingling that we have, that we never did. Uh, Thanking the tradition right now, myself, that our ancestors did not do this foolish thing about, okay, so Laukika and Karma Kanda are different. No. The Karma Kanda is within the Laukika. So the religion is in the life, in every aspect of life, from what is even maybe called as profane or vulgar or disgusting. No, even in there is a element of religion as well. So everywhere there is religion, everywhere there is I guess what you are seeing right now, that moral also comes in because of that. So there is self control in that, whereas in
Right, right.
the western
And
society, western, yeah.
yes, yes. And from the point which you brought about on Karma Kanda, we can also kind of differentiate between their religion and ours. So when you look at their religious practice, you can mostly boil it down to reading texts or reciting texts, whereas our religious practice consists of actual worship. And we engage with nature. I remember seeing a video on this that, say, like when a yajna is being done, so we have to bring the samagri from all kinds of parts of nature, and for that the nature has to be maintained as well. That makes it a very wholesome kind of point of view, whereas where in their view, where the only the text has to be read, they don't have to really extend themselves to nature or make them up themselves a part of it. So they are kind of left out, right? They have
Absolutely,
no
what a
stake
brilliant
when
example
the
that you gave
destruction
right
of
now.
nature
So
happens.
totally. So, like, mm, uh, the modern world, or the, let's say, okay, so the modern world is just an evolute of the uh, ideology that they have. So let's talk about the ideology itself, the West, that it professes, the secular. So in that, the religion takes a very separate corner of, of their life, and it's like what should I say? It's only mental. It's only in a very small piece of our life. It only remains there itself, and there it ends. So you step into the Sunday school, and you step out of Sunday school. Your religion ends there. That's it. Now back to social life or secular life again. In India, uh, due to our dharma, what you said so beautifully. So when doing yajna, you have to gather all sets of samagri from everywhere. You have to engage with all sets of people, and everyone has to be in that process itself. Like this is actually what Sri Krishna even meant, I think, in Bhagavad Gita as well. That yajna is basically the process that whole of universe engages in. That's what yajna is, and it's like manifested in such a small way across us as human beings. That's the limitation that we can do, but we are just uh, doing the same thing which happens in universe as a whole. Like we are only producing the cosmos in such a small but in a human way. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant.
Yes, and we can move on to the next points on religious toleration and etiquette. What do you think about these two?
Yeah, so on the third point, imposed, I think, let's just say that on religious toleration, all religion, like to quote him, all religious dogmas are formulas imposed upon the infinite by limitations of finite human intellect. Okay, so I think he's talking about how to view the other set of, let's say, ideologies that we have come across, right? So in the process of history that India has experienced, various set of religions have come in India who are not really comfortable in this society itself, and how to
I think
accommodate
it is
that.
more of a
So,
different perspective. So I'll tell. I think
okay.
what he means a different thing. So
Mhm.
what he means is that say you are from a certain sect and you're looking at another sect and you find their their worldview or their own philosophy is quite different from ours, and they adhere to the dogmas, but yet what drives us to be tolerant? What drives us to be tolerant is understanding that human intellect is finite. That means their dogmas are driven by fin- uh, that intellect, right? And so is ours. So is our own dogma affected by finite human intellect. The truth is not some. You can't say just somewhere in between, but also it is not known in a sense, and we are seekers. So, in that spirit, there must be a religious toleration.
True. This is a very unique point, I guess, what you said right now. So basically, you are talking about that limitation of our sense organs and mental faculties leads us to having kind of very narrow set of injunctions or dogmas that we hold on to and only heed to them
And the
alone
limits
and
of our
not
own
everything else.
experience.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and to impose that narrow set of dogmas as the infinite, it's just foolish. So yeah, so keeping in mind that the truth is infinity, in that we are as small as we are as humans, there are limitations to it, and therefore there must be tolerance. Yeah, absolutely. Now I understand. Yeah, great point, bhai. Great explanation. On the fourth one now. This is very good, I think, and we should discuss this somewhat. So, there is this whole idea, right, that only educated people are having this sense of, okay, civility or how to uh, conduct themselves or how to conduct within institutions, so on and so forth. And those who are not really that educated or that much engrossed with books and scholarships and so on, they do not have that sort of ability at all to conduct themselves or to engage with institutions yet again. But we see that he's quoting some historian, I guess, or sociologist, Knox, that in Sri Lanka, there is a proverb that even an ordinary plowman, if he is removed of his plow and cleaned, he can easily run a government or a kingdom, as it's said over there. So this, like, what should I say? This percolation down to that simple plowman from scholar to plowman, when there is such a great sense of civility and understanding, that really shows how advanced that society is, where there is really no difference between, to quote Kumaraswamy, the ability of speech of a countryman and a courtier. Whereas this cannot be said in modern society, as is shown today by a certain government in the West, that when that government had a certain kind of leader chosen to head its nation, that leader, since he was not really from, or what should I say, really cajoled in certain institution or instruction machines, to quote Kumaraswamy, he cannot behave in that way at all. He behaves like totally different. He has no sense of civility or grandeur at all, or humility as well. What do you say?
Absolutely. And harking back to the point where we pointed out the difference in their religious practice as well, where they essentially the religious practice boils down to reading and quoting verses from their texts, whereas ours involves engaging with society, nature, in all levels. That comes down to the same thing. That is why I think that is why this plowman who has engaged with nature, with religious practice, our religious practice, and with people in a different way from the, you can say, the people who go through the, what do you call it, the who are a cog in the machine, so as to speak, in the modern world.
Yep.
They are just people who read books and get titles and so on. They have nothing to give in front of that plowman. That is why the plowman would always make a better ruler.
Yeah, and because of this bifurcation itself, right? So where religion is only like bookish and only mugging out facts and all, only a set of people will be able to actually embody that religion, quote unquote, in that Western society, right? And there then is created a set of class, in fact, right? So a class which is good in scholarship or mugging down uh, Bible verses and so on and so forth, whereas the other common folks do not have that, and there is then the disdain from that. That okay, I am so great that I have these capabilities, whereas these set of people, these peasants, do not, and then we see the kind of differences that they have in their attitudes, and it's really seen in modern society as well,
Absolutely.
which is unusual given modern society talks about equality.
Absolutely. So, what do you have to say on the next few points? These are more shorter ones, fifth, sixth, and seventh.
Yeah, so did you see in the fifth point? This is such a uh, underappreciated thing. So over here, he's telling us how different psychology we had vis-a-vis the West. As far as pedagogy is concerned, he's even quoting Manusmriti over here. That uh, according to Manu, just as a man who digs with a spade obtains water, even so an obedient pupil obtains the knowledge which lies within his teacher. Uh, this uh, actually throws a responsibility towards the student, that the student must be responsible for gaining knowledge. He must be inquisitive, he must be curious, he must investigate, he must put some effort. He must of course agree to the authority of the teacher, but he must be endeavoring, putting effort. I guess this is also something which entrepreneurs have, right? This set of qualities. And whereas, according to modern West, the pedagogy is about, okay, the teacher has the responsibility to make it easy for the pupil. The pupil is just there to mug it up. The pupil is just there to receive it. He has to put no efforts at all, whereas the teacher has to put all of the efforts. This is such a different perspective, in fact. And uh, I don't know if I could say this over here in this podcast, but one of our great intellects in India also made this folly when he said that in the context of Adhikara in his speech. So he talked about how it is foolish to accept the pupil to be good, because it's the job of the teacher to be good enough to explain to his pupil better. But this is really countered by Ananda Coomaraswamy here, whereas according to him, it's the student who has to put the effort. It's him at the end of the day. It's not the teacher. That is so different. What points do you have, Nina, on this or on my views?
You highlighted quite a great point, and I would like to add that in a way, by now, you can say at least in 21st century, this kind of culture is lost. We are almost completely westernized. I can give an example. See the words guru and chela mentioned here. You can look at what context chela is used in the modern times. It is always used in a derogatory sense, in a sense that
Totally.
people assume there is a lack of dignity in in having humility to be a chela.
Hmm. Yes. The kind of insinuations that they put is that, okay, he's a slave, like that sort of disgusting attitude that they have.
Yes, and it is also again we can also move back to the point of collective truth versus individual truth, where the individual truth will find
Again.
being a chela embarrassing, or you can say if he is lacking humility, he would not find it acceptable. But a collective truth would teach him that it is a temporary embarrassment for a longer, you can say, a longer journey where
Benefit.
you
Yeah,
will actually be the guru at some point.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I think I don't know if I can quote correctly over here. So Shankara, in his Shataslok, he talks about how what's the importance of guru. That he says that it's only the guru who makes even a greater scholar out of his students than he was at all. So that's the greatness of a guru. And when one realizes this, why not accept the authority and actually endeavor yourself to be curious and, to quote Manu, use your spade to dig out the water. Similarly, dig in and bring out all the wisdom from your guru and enrich yourself. Instead of that, it's the opposite is done over there.
Absolutely. We can move on to the next few
And on the
points.
sixth, yeah, on the sixth one, okay,
Yeah.
this is just pithy sentence but straight cut. That the all of the principle of altruism is not based on commandments, like in a kind of an ideology over there. It's like, okay, uh, we should we should help our neighbors. That's it. That's a command. You should be following it mechanically. Whereas over here, it's based on a philosophical point of view. Okay, that neighbor is also like me. Therefore, just as I need help, he needs help as well. That's a far better base for creating the idea of altruism and other ethical codes. That's the simple point that he talked about, like recognition of unity of all life. And seventhly, again, control not merely of action but of thoughts, concentration, one-pointedness, capacity for stillness. What do you speak of it? Like, I don't know, nothing is coming to me at least on this seventh point. Uh, it's simple, but it's
I
somewhat
think it's
mysterious to
very,
me.
yeah, it's very straightforward about that
Hmm.
education itself should be about self-control, along with obviously
Oh,
the, yeah, and not merely of action, as in actions or you can say actions delegated by a syllabus where you're taught a certain book, a certain uh, poem, certain so on, right? But that control, it will be also concentration and for a capacity of stillness and you can say the ability to hear out the other person's perspective.
true, true, true. This is so great of a point. So for the audience, control would be, I guess, Indriya Nigraha or Dhamma, I think, as far as our scriptures are concerned.
Yes,
That's the word
yes,
that's used
correct.
traditionally.
That's absolutely correct.
Hmm. And okay, this para was quite broad. And what did you get,
I think it's a
Nenar?
summary of all the points that he,
Okay.
yes, it's a summary of the points that he discussed earlier.
Hmm. So it talks about culture, right? Over here, that the aim of the culture is to develop intelligence of people, uh, through tradition itself. Another name for it is also culture over here that he has used colloquially. And also he points out that those who have come into contact with modern idea, to quote him, some part of that wider synthesis that should enable such a one to understand what may be the nature of the prospect seen from some other of the great headlands, the other national cultures, where from humanity has gazed into the dim sea of the infinite unknown. Okay, this line is very cumbersome, but I think he's talking about how there is this um, inability, I guess, within the modern mind to observe what earlier cultures from different parts of the world were able to do easily, as far as gazing into the, or let's say, investigation of infinite. That becomes harder, I guess, with modern
Yes.
ideas.
So from over here, I think the perspective is that there is a physical home. Everybody has a home in which they live, but there is also a mental home. That is your culture, and from that, that culture is your hill, or you can say your fort. And from there is your point of view where you look at other homes and other hills, and that's why he brings about the idea of a wider landscape, the culture orienting the man to look at other cultures. And the reason why you need to learn about your own cultural concepts is because it is your home and that you apply it in your home. When you educate yourself in the culture of another, you can say another land or another people, you cannot apply it in your own home. That is why there is a sort of homelessness also, right?
True, it's like fitting in, like there's a square hole, but you're trying to fit in a circle. Like that's not gonna work. Same is the case, like
Exactly.
how if we are devoid of our own, yeah, completely that. Beautiful, beautiful. Uh, and then the point that he talks about our university, that small line, I guess, one line, uh, that it's what should be the goal, at least for our future universities. As far as Ananda Coomaraswamy was concerned, our university must uh, be first and foremost a school of Oriental learning. and not just being catering to us, but also trying to attract scholars from everywhere. And the crucial point over there, which you had pointed out as well while reading, that's those set of scholars should come here to learn the wisdom of the East in the East. Like that good we should be becoming. Like we should not be caricaturing ourselves, I guess. Like I don't know, maybe he's intending that or not, but we should not be like
Yes,
trying to project our own wisdom like through Western lens, but
in their
from
terms.
Eastern
It should
house.
be in our own terms.
Yeah, it should be our own terms. Yeah, brilliantly put. Yep. And then he talks about
That goes back
a
to the point
policy, I
where he
guess. That
talks about where he talks about English educators, English teachers being under Indian managers. So it is also in that same context that the university must serve our purposes in the end and educate the others come from other parts of the world for our purposes. That our way of thinking is spread in the world.
brilliantly put. This actually should be the case, and instead of becoming even the folly that which our curriculum also does is we also try to become like, okay, so we have to cater to the other set of cultures, so let's just try to ape their analysis of us. No, that cannot
It
be the
treats all
case.
cultures
We
as
should do it
equal.
different.
In that is quite a folly.
Yeah. Brilliant. That's the great dilemma that modern world has. Also,
Yeah. What do you think about
facing
this paragraph
the
on
West is facing that.
women education?
Oh yeah, this portion. Okay, so this is really like to some of the lines of this paragraph when you were reading, like I was thinking, okay, this is so triggering for some certain section of women. Like he talks about
Yes,
what's true
absolutely.
education of an Indian woman. Like the opportunity was totally wasted. Like the kind of education which was given to the woman, now we are suffering from it because of it. Like how the women were in our history or so-called myths as well, how they were represented as, how strong they were, how steadfast they were, how submitting they were. That's a very controversial point today, but I I think I can totally vouch for it that submission over here means the humility aspect. It's not about something else that the West conjures up whenever it hears the word submission. That's not the point. And in learning as well. But this whole point that he points out that the woman or the daughter was kept protected, that she was the pearl of the house, that she needed to be cared for. She was not meant to struggle like the men of the house, but yet free to be herself at the end. But all of this was lost with this. So,
Yes.
and that was
I
also
think
done
on this
because of
topic he has
the
a
ulterior
different
motive.
essay we can probably read later. That one has
Haha.
goes into depth in each topic, and here it's very concise and even I did not understand the whole thing about written here.
True. It's very narrativized, I think, and cumbersome also to some extent. But
Yes.
still, that point that he says over here, that's good. Like he points out that all of this in the name of women education that was done in India, it was done with the ulterior motives. It was not done to help
Of
them
conversion.
to become themselves. Yeah, no. You were saying something.
Yes. I think just a second.
Mhm.
Oh, right. We just have one paragraph to finish. So I'll read this last paragraph. and then we can give our
Okay, okay.
last thought on this. Yes. So, if the advocates compulsory education were sincere, and by education meant education, they would be well aware that the first result of any real universal education would be to rear a race who would refuse point blank the greater part of activities offered by the present day civilized existence. I lay it at the door of science, not indeed as a prime cause, as the immediate instrument that life under modern Western culture is not worth living, except for those who are strong enough and well enough equipped to maintain a perpetual guerrilla warfare against all the purposes and idols of that civilization with a view to its utter transformation. This was quite you can say difficult
Yeah,
paragraph.
powerful.
What do you think about it? What is he trying
Mm.
to say here?
Yeah, so he's talking about how education was misconstrued totally. Like the advocates of education, even though they were very sincere and very, what should I say, very emotional for its implementation, they never understood what education actually meant, and that uh, they should have been aware that what happens due to this kind of universal education and what it does to any race, uh, and the follies of it, and the blame also he puts out. uh, he lays it at the door of science, and not as the chief villain, but at least as the instrument, um, which the goal of which was to produce a modern society, a modern Western culture, in fact, which would be produced everywhere in the world. And due to that, what happened was there is a kind of what should I say? Uh, a tradition, I guess, hollow life, and that kind of life is lived by everyone right now in the modern world, and only those who are equipped, he says right at the last point, that those who are strong enough and well enough equipped to maintain a perpetual guerrilla warfare against all the purposes and idols of that civilization with a view to its utter transformation. I think in this line, I think he was talking about only the traditionalists are strong enough, like those who are advocates of collective truth, those who are seeped into traditions, they alone are strong enough and well equipped enough to launch a guerrilla warfare against this modern Western paradigm. Uh, do you think I'm correct at
Absolutely.
analyzing this?
Yes, yes. And I think the reason why he puts science as the instrument for this kind of problem, what you can say, a problem, maybe, yeah, you can call it a problem. So the reason why
Yeah,
he
yeah. The problem
points
being
to science,
modernity.
yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. So the reason why he points to science is that science has effect to science is a tool which always brings something new, and largely that new thing is tending out to be good. So the overall broader outlook towards science has always been positive, and that is
Yeah.
one reason why modernity is looked upon with so much favor. Say things like medicine, it is always getting better. New medicine cannot come out which is actually worse. At least
Yeah, yeah.
that's how
Absolutely.
I think. So the
Yeah,
people
yeah. It
tend
is
to
correct.
extrapolate this aspect of science into all of their worldview, that everything new is better.
What is interesting to me right now, that it clicked to me, maybe you can talk about it much more detail. So, science, in fact, is a remnant of traditional truth, right? Like the collective truth. It's not an individual truth based subject at all. It has an authority. it has a tradition, it has a set of
Right, right.
values, principles, right?
I can go back to a
And
section where
the
he
outcomes of
talked
it.
about something very important. So yeah, you can go on talking. I'll find that section.
Yeah, like the science, the objects that come out of this scientific investigation and the usefulness of it. You pointed out, right? Like medicines are always better. Um, Objects like, for example, prosthetics that come out, those are also so better as far as by maintaining that whole tradition of science. We only prosper in a way, but what has happened is that tradition, since it has been diverged out of that whole mechanism itself, so science is not seen as a tradition. Science is not seen as a output of collective truth. It is also misconstrued as, okay, it also is it's all about refuting previous theories. It's also about rising, uh, like, no, what should I say? Like promoting the individual to investigate more and more. Like that paradigm again comes in, that the whole modern West paradigm of emotionalism, impulsivism, that is also brought in science as well. And now we see some disasters as well, even in science, that is creeping in. And those are being challenged by scientists, but let's see what happens. But uh, that's how science was totally mangled, I guess, and that's what he's hinting at, that it became an instrument for promoting the degraded life of modern Western culture, and what we are suffering for, what we are suffering from right
Yes.
now.
So it is also true that science does not get the whole picture since it is in the nature of continuously discovering new things. So we know at any given point that science is not given the full picture of anything. Say whether a particular medicine is at the best possible thing it could be, or a particular you can say maybe how fast a car can run. That car could possibly run faster, but science has not given a perspective as to how it could run faster. That is why um, just subscribing to the theories as facts, or using them to design your life is not enough. And here we go back to the points which he laid out to us. The very first point was about how science should be taught in a right way. He talked about a superstition of facts that was being taught in the name of science, and how experience, uh, or you can say the cultural knowledge, was being put behind. And this also reflects in the same old thing that we were discussing earlier about how their religious practice was all merely about reading verses or reading out texts. That's all. It's not about a more comprehensive worldview. What do you think about that?
Totally, I agree with you. Actually, science at the end of the day is a tool, so it will always be in the hands of those who dictate the values. And when those values are dictated in the
And it
terms
is
of
eternally
impulsiveness
imperfect.
and individual truth. Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. Mm, so when it's done through the lens of individualism, superstition of facts alone are seen as worth mentioning, and since those can be then used to produce uh, consumption objects or self-expression based objects, mm, that's how I guess the evils of modern and Western society comes in every other cultures as well. Uh,
Yes.
Given that
I
cultural
have a very
or
good example in
collective truth
mind.
is lost.
Yes, I have a very good example
Yeah,
in
yeah,
mind.
please share with us.
One.
Mhm.
One would be of certain sciences that used to exist were proven to be false. For example, eugenics. It was said to be that certain ways of certain, you can say, features in the human body were superior or not superior in various ways, but later that was disproven. So science is always in this perfect, in this kind of, what do you call it, in a kind of churn. It is always permanently
Turn,
changing.
yeah,
You cannot build a worldview out of it.
totally, totally. And there comes the aspect of collective truth, as you said, the collective truth and individual truth. If individual truth is made
Yes,
the top of the chain, then eugenics becomes very good at that time. Eugenics is the appropriate science for uh, producing a good society and seeing that, okay, this set of people alone are worthy of uh, conducting affairs of life, and the other set is not, therefore we must take into account and do yada yada. We know what goes on after that. We
absolutely.
may not talk
Yes.
about it right now. That's what happens. So brilliant reading, amazing set of essays, amazing set of points. What a journey it was. Amazing. Nainer, what do you say right now?
Yes, it was quite a lot of things to go through. And let me show the book to the audience one last time so that you know where to buy it. And because there are not just this essay, there are many essays, essays on art, essays on themes like how we cover tradition, progress, and so on, and even on various personalities. There is one essay on Gandhi, Nehru, and I believe Sister Nivedita as well, who we have read about in a book earlier. So yes, let me just share my screen so everyone can see the book.
Yes, audience, please look at this book, and we will be doing many more sessions as well on this gold,
Here you can
like
buy the book
this
at
gem of a book.
Amazon. Yes, you can buy the book at Amazon or any other website. This is published by Indica, as you can see here written down. Is it visible, Rishi?
Yes, yes, completely visible.
Okay, okay, yeah. So that was the book, and we'll just give our final thoughts. What are your final thoughts on this, Rishi?
Yeah, so gem of a book should be kept in every houses, according to me. At least for the Hindus, I can say that every Hindu should keep this and should read this every day, one single page at least, and try to imbibe those policies or these thought processes at least in their headspace, and should appreciate these points and try to imbibe them in their life, and try to analyze them and try to profess them to other contemporaries as well. uh,
Yes,
these are my points.
and why I would particularly recommend this book is because in current times we often see critiques of modernity, but without any actual background, so to speak. So here in this book, Kumaraswamy has actually been constructive with his criticism, where he actually shows what to fall back on when we remove this modern world from a picture in mind, and what are the actual values and what are the actual frameworks that we should seek to see in this kind of, in you can say, how we, what kind of worldview we must have. We don't have to agree with Kumaraswamy on every point, but once you kind of see this point that he's trying to make here, you just won't see the world same way again. That tradition isn't just superstition, and education is not just always enlightenment. So yeah, that was The book we discussed today, the essays Tradition and Progress and On Education by A. Kumaraswamy. Thank you to all the viewers. Namaste. Jai Shri Ram.